As we have all probably realized by now, Onslaught is not an easy game mode by any means, especially when it comes to the legend difficulty. So if you're looking for an insane Strand Titan build to help yourself and your team continuously get to high rounds, then I have the perfect build for you to try. Because with this build, we will have infinite access to woven mail and healing, as well as the ability to continuously suspend groups of enemies with ease. Oh yeah, and Strand Titan also has one of the most broken supers in the game when it comes to ad clear. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure to stick around to get the full outlook of the build, and make sure to leave a like and a comment if you enjoy the video. Also, it appears that over 90% of my viewers aren't currently subscribed to me, so if you're one of those individuals, please think about joining the community because it really helps me out greatly. But enough of that, let's hop right into the build. Going right into my setup so you guys can see what I'm running before I jump into my subclass and my mods. The exotic weapon I'm using is the Strand Wishkeeper bow, paired up with the exotic legs known as the Abeyant Leaps. Jumping straight into the Wishkeeper and why I like it so much. First off, we have the intrinsic trait known as Snare Weaver. Precision hits and final blows build energy towards a Snare Weaver arrow. Snare Weaver arrows create a pattern of traps that suspend nearby targets. And also, with the trait Multi-Threaded Snare, you're able to suspend a lot more targets with this. So if you place a trap correctly, you will easily be able to suspend a bunch of targets, allowing you and your fire team to easily destroy them. And also a bonus this weapon has is with Silkbound Slayer. This weapon deals bonus damage to suspended targets. And you also get a faster draw time for the weapon whenever you suspend a target or do damage to a suspended target with this weapon. And it's pretty simple how the Snare Weaver is activated. In order to build up the 6 stacks needed for the Snare Weaver arrow, what you need to do is kill combatants obviously, but the higher tier combatants you kill, the more stacks you'll get in the weapon. So I find it most efficient to kill a bunch of red bar targets so you're able to use a suspend to get the yellow bars suspended and then easily kill them with your other weapons. Yeah, one of my favorite bows, and it works so good in Onslaught. Now looking at the Abeyant Leaps and what they do, they have an armor perk known as Puppeteer's Control. Drenger's Lash spawns 2 additional projectiles, tracks targets more aggressively, and travels farther, and you gain woven mail when suspending targets. And this is huge because it doesn't just take into account the targets that are suspended because of our Drenger's Lash aspect, it also takes into account the enemies that are suspended with our Wishkeeper. So we're easily going to be able to get woven mail over and over again. And just so it makes a little bit more sense, I'm going to talk about the aspect in question, the Drenger's Lash. Activate your class ability to create a ripple in reality that travels forward along the ground, suspending and damaging targets it hits. And the important thing about this is that without the Abeyant Leap exotic, the amount of ripples that comes out of your barricade whenever you place it down is only 1. But with the Abeyant Leaps, it is 3, which is huge, especially for PvE. You're able to suspend a lot more targets, allowing you to have an easier time, especially in Onslaught, because Onslaught is going to be continuously throwing high level enemies at you, so having the ability to suspend some of them is going to greatly benefit your team. But yeah, I just want to talk about that aspect so the exotic made a little bit more sense. So now we can just continue on with the subclass. For the second aspect, I'm choosing to use Banner of War. Defeat a target with a melee attack, finisher, or sword to raise a Banner of War that pulses with energy, periodically healing nearby allies and increasing melee and sword damage. Targets defeated by you and your nearby allies charge the banner, increasing the speed of its pulses, which can be stacked up to 4 times as long as you continuously are defeating targets. This is great because what Banner of War does is it allows you to have a 60% damage resistance whenever it's active, and the timer is continuously extended for every kill you get while you have the Banner of War, which is huge. Sadly, your allies don't also get the woven mail, but if you did use a different aspect you could, but Drenger's Lash is kind of the whole idea of this build, so it doesn't make sense to not use it. But they do get a constant healing effect, which definitely helps when they're getting bombarded by all the enemies that are thrown at you in Onslaught. And also on top of this, being able to suspend a great amount of targets is going to save your allies some health in that aspect as well. So yeah, 2 great aspects to use together. Now jumping into our abilities, for our grenade we are using grapple, so we can easily grapple to targets and use our Strand melee to do a lot of damage. Also grappling to a tangle will immediately recharge our grenade energy, allowing us to grapple again. And then, during and shortly after grappling, your melee attack deals area damage and unravels targets. And then for our melee, we of course have Frenzied Blade. It's the only melee we have, but what it does is, when you activate your charged melee, you dash forward, slashing at targets in front of you and severing them. And whenever a target is severed, that just means that the target will be doing less damage to you and your allies, which is a great debuff. And then we just have Strafe Lift and Towering Barricade. That's all for the abilities. Now moving on to the fragments. First one we have is Threat of Mind. Defeating suspended targets grants class ability energy, which, as we know, our class ability is our barricade, and being able to constantly put our barricade down means we get to suspend a bunch of targets. And when it comes to the amount of class ability energy you get per target, For tier 1 miners, you get 10%, tier 2 miners and tier 1 elites, you get 12%, tier 3 miners and tier 2 elites, you get 15%, and tier 4 miners, tier 3 elites and higher give you 30%. So if you save your suspend and your barricade for high level targets, you will be getting a lot of class ability energy back. And since Onslaught is just throwing waves and waves of enemies at you, you're gonna have no problem getting your class ability back, allowing you to keep suspending more targets each time you do this. But yeah, that's all for our first fragment. Now moving on to our second one. I'm gonna go in a different order so the build makes more sense. We have Thread of Wisdom. Defeating suspended targets creates an Orb of Power, and this can proc every 10 seconds, so you'll be able to do this pretty often. And the Orb of Power grants you 2.5% of your super energy back, which definitely adds up over time. So this means with Thread of Wisdom and Thread of Mind, whenever we defeat suspended targets, we are granted class ability energy, along with Orbs of Power, which is great. And why this is so important is because for our next fragment, we have Thread of Warding. Picking up an Orb of Power grants us Woven Mail. And if you didn't know what Woven Mail is, it basically just grants you 60% damage reduction from all enemies while you're in combat. So a great buff to go alongside your Banner of War. You're going to be having insane damage resistance, allowing you to stay alive in the crazy fights that happen in Onslaught. And then, for our fourth and final fragment, we have Thread of Transmutation. While you have Woven Mail, Weapon Final Blows will create a Tangle. And since we're going to have Woven Mail so often, we're going to be able to spawn out tons of Tangles, throwing them at enemies, causing great amounts of damage. So as you can see, all four of these fragments work so well together with the Suspend, the Woven Mail, the Tangles. It is just a great combo. And then for our amazing super, we have Blade Fury, which severs targets on hits and also deals bonus damage to all the suspended targets. And also, since you're able to suspend targets with this super, you're going to be doing insane amounts of damage, allowing you to wipe out entire waves of enemies, and it's really helpful for your team. And is one of my favorite supers when it comes to ad control. That's all for the subclass. You can take a screenshot of it. Of course, the dim link will be below. But now, let's go back to the setup. Now that we're once again looking at my setup, I kind of want to talk about the secondary weapon I use alongside the Wishkeeper. I either choose to use a Forbearance with something like Chain Reaction, or a nice shotgun like Last Man Standing with 1-2 Punch. Or you can use any nice fusion rifle, it really depends. But grenade launchers are great for ad clear, and a shotgun with 1-2 Punch is great for doing insane amounts of damage. And then throw in a nice rocket launcher like Apex Predator, or a linear fusion rifle like Briar's Contempt to be able to deal with the Tormentors. And then looking at my stats, I of course have high resilience, recovery, and discipline. I wish I had some more discipline, but it's fine. My Titan is my least used character, so I have some pretty trash stats, but just focus those three. And then here what my armor mods look like. For my helmet, I'm running 1 stack of Hands On to gain bonus super energy on my melee kills, alongside a Strand Siphon to get more Orbs of Power. And then for my gauntlets, I'm running Focusing Strike for some more class ability energy, alongside Heavy Handed for some more Orbs of Power. And then for your chest piece, you can do whatever you want. I just have a bunch of resistance mods on. Depending on what you fight, obviously you can change these out. And then for my Abeyant Leap leg exotic, I'm running 1 stack of Insulation, Innervation, and Absolution just to reduce my ability cooldowns whenever I pick up an Orb of Power. And then lastly, on my Titan mark, I'm running 1 Bomber for reduced grenade cooldown when using my class ability, alongside Outreach for reduced melee cooldown when using your class ability. So anytime we put up our barricade, which we get very often, that'll help with that. And then of course, Reaper. Shortly after using our barricade, our next weapon final blow will spawn an Orb of Power, which is huge for us. Because once again, Orbs of Power, whenever we pick them up, they grant us Woven Mail, which makes the whole rest of the build flow together. So yeah, these are all my mods I like to use, and that's all I have for the video today. I hope you enjoyed the video and decided to try out this build. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I promise you, with this build, you will have a great time in Onslaught and be able to provide immense support for you and your fire team. If you have any other suggestions on classes you'd like me to make a build for, make sure to let me know in the comments as well. But with that being said, that's all I have. So until next time, my name is Apoxy. Peace.